Hello, I'm Claudine Wong, an anchor for KTVU Channel 2 and your moderator today. Welcome to a roundtable of candidates running for Contra Costa Supervisor District 5. District 5 spans the north shore of Contra Costa County. That includes the cities of Hercules, Martinez, Pittsburgh, and portions of Pinole and Antioch, as well as the unincorporated communities of Alhambra Valley, Bay Point, Briones, Rodeo, Pacheco, Crockett Torney, Port Costa, Mount View, Vine Hill, Release Valley, and Clyde. Today's roundtable is sponsored by the Contra Costa County Elections Division, the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and West Contra Costa County, and Contra Costa Television, with support from the cities of Concord and Walnut Creek. We are recording this roundtable live in the Martinez studios of Contra Costa Television. We'd like to welcome the candidates today. We have Iztac Watley Gonzalez, Jelani Killings, Chanel Scales-Preston, and Mike Barbanica. Now, we took some drew lots prior to the start of this program so we could determine speaking order. We're going to start with a 1-minute opening statement from the candidates, and we begin with Iztac Watley Gonzalez.
Lazo Kamati, gracias. Thank you for everyone that put this event together. I really appreciate everyone, all their hard work, and I decided to run. I'm not a politician like my other three cohorts, but I decided to run to represent the voice of the people and to fight for everyone to make this county an outstanding county. I believe that this county, in a strategic position it is, in between San Francisco, Sacramento, and the Silicon Valley, it's a great location to grow and excel to levels that we haven't seen it. And I am asking for your vote to make this county efficient, effective, inclusive, and responsive.
All right, thank you. Jelani Killings, your opening statement.
Yes, thank you, and excited to be here. My name is Jelani Killings, candidate for Contra Costa County Supervisor District 5. And so for the past 8 years, I've had the honor of serving as a council member in the city of Pittsburgh. Very proud of the progress we've been able to make. As well, for the past 10 years in my professional work, I've worked in the city of Oakland as an ethics analyst for the Public Ethics Commission. And so my eye is always on good governance, making sure that government is transparent, that we're operating with integrity, and ultimately that we're held accountable for the decisions that we're making. So I look forward to be able to represent the residents of District 5 on the Board of Supervisors, that we can make sure we have an independent and trustworthy voice, and that we can improve the quality of life for the residents in the district.
All right, thank you. Your opening statement, Chanel Scales-Preston.
Yes, thank you. My name is Chanel Scales-Preston, and I'm a candidate for District 5. But I'm also a community member. I've been in public service for 22 years, working for Congressman George Miller and Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. I'm currently serving on the Pittsburgh City Council and been serving on that council for 5.5 years and have really invested into my community. I look forward to investing in District 5, creating a community where people are valued, where their opinions are heard, and creating a vibrant community with opportunity. Thank you.
All right. Mike Barbanica, your opening statement.
Thank you. My name is Mike Barbanica. I am currently running for County Supervisor District 5. I have a lifelong history of public service. I served with the Pittsburgh Police Department for 21 years, retiring there as a lieutenant. Coincidentally, my son actually now serves and works my old beat in the city of Pittsburgh. Our family has been around public service my entire life. I have a daughter that's a deputy district attorney and another daughter that's a PA. I'm a father of 3, a grandfather of 5. I currently serve on the Antioch City Council, and I look forward to the opportunity of serving the residents of District 5. What it really comes down to is we need change within the district, and I believe I can bring that change and stand up for what is right for the residents of the community. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for those opening statements. Let's just dive right into a lot that we have to talk about. And I'd like to start with budget and money. Certainly that defines, where we go and what spaces that we sit in. Mr. Killings, if we start with you in terms of budget priorities, where do you want to spend money? Where do you want to cut money?
Yeah, great question. I think first, when we're talking about the overall budget, it's looking at the core services that we provide as a county. So we know we provide a lot of the medical and health services. We have the Sheriff's Department for public safety in the unincorporated areas, as well as a number of child care services, and also looking at what we're doing with employment and human services. So with all of that, for me, the I is accountability and making sure that we're not exceeding our expenditures with the revenues that are coming in. So with that type of fiscal oversight, really wanting to make sure that when we're looking at prioritizing, we want to make sure that we have enough coverage for our Sheriff's Department when it comes to covering the unincorporated areas of the county. When it comes to our health services, our medical regional center, we want to make sure that they have enough for the operations and the personnel. I think what we're seeing happening just across local governments is that we have to get better at managing the costs that are going both with our labor and our personnel, as well as the operations programs and services that we offer. So my eye is really looking at performance measurement. So when we're looking at programs, we have a county auditor. We need to make sure that we're having performance audits of the programs and services we have in place. And if we're not getting the results for the money that we're putting in, or we're seeing that the investment isn't proving to be effective, then we need to have the courage to be able to say we need to either pull back or look at an alternative route in terms of trying to address some of the problems.
Is there one
we have in the
specific
county.
area, though, that you would say is priority number one?
For me, a big priority is dealing with public safety. So we want to make sure that both our fire and our Sheriff's Department are supported to make sure that they're getting out to the community, covering the coverage that we have for emergency response. And I think if I had another priority, it would definitely be workforce development. And so we know a lot of issues that we have. We're trying to address poverty. We're trying to address human services within the county. But really the key indicators that move people towards self-sufficiency are around education and employment. And I definitely would want to bolster our workforce development program.
Okay. Ms. Scales-Preston, your budget priorities, if you had to make a list of where you think money should be spent and maybe where you think it should be cut.
Which is a tough question because it's a $5 billion budget.
Yes.
And so you are trying to make sure you're looking at equity across the board. And so that would be my first thing is, looking at those different departments, looking at areas where we can create equity, making sure that when we have these cuts, it's just not cutting the working people. It's not cutting and hurting people who need these services. So a priority would be public safety, but priority for me would also be the health services, mental health services, just everyday childcare, making sure people are able to go and be seen by a doctor. And then looking at employment opportunities as well, which is something that is really needed here in District 5. So, we want to look at places where things may not be needed anymore and doing some type of analysis on that, and then redirecting those funds to where they're needed right now.
Mr. Barbanica.
Homelessness, public safety, and blight. Those are the three top priorities for me as I come into office. They've been the top priorities for me my entire time in office now. If you look at this, the state of California spent over $20 million to purchase the Motel 6 on Loveridge Road in Pittsburgh. That $20 million is your taxpayer money. Now, fast forward, Contra Costa County is working to administer the program there for unhoused residents. Is that a success? Is that the proper use of your money? And I want an audit of that. I want to know what the success rate is coming out of the old Motel 6, which is now called Delta Landing, and what has that brought to our community. The city of Pittsburgh, when that was taken away, lost $500,000 approximately in the temporary occupancy tax. And with that, what have we accomplished with that? I know the city of Pittsburgh for some time has struggled with things that have occurred around that area as a result of this coming in from the state of California. Can that be run more efficiently? I actually work this area of concern in my private business. And when that hotel or Delta Landing opened, I was contacted by Contra Costa County, and they asked me if I could privately, not as a public official, but privately, if I could work with them to put people into homes. This was over 3 years ago that this occurred. The county has spent over $170 million in the last 4 years on homelessness. And what have we seen? Drive down the street. Do you see the effect of it? I want an audit of that $170 million. I also want an audit specifically of what has gone on in Delta Landing. But the key to this is do you know how many times I've received a phone call since they opened to place a resident in a home within the community? Now, I did my part, and I went out and found dozens of homeowners willing to accept HUD vouchers, and to this date, not one, zero. And that is a shame. That is your taxpayer money, and when you drive down the street and see our unhoused resident issues, we need to focus on where is that money being spent, how is it being spent, and is it being spent in a way that's going to benefit the community as well as the unhoused resident. Okay. That, along with public safety, is a huge priority. But as we go through this today, I'll talk more about public safety.
We're going to drill down on some of those issues specifically. Mr. Gonzalez, I want to give you a chance to say what your budget priorities would be.
I believe we have to look outside our county to look at other county models that are doing a better job working with your hard money. That a lot of you guys work hard and pay taxes, and you guys want to make sure your taxes are well spent. Just like when you are budgeting what you're going to spend for your family, you want your county representatives to spend effectively for programs, whether it be health, whether it be public safety, whether it be work programs trying to encourage more job opportunities. I think we have to work and look at do audits on what we have going on in our county, but at the same time, we have to look outside our county. We look at counties that are on the success track doing a great job and go out there and see what they're doing, learn from other counties, not only in California, but throughout the country, whether it be blue, red, wherever it might be, we have something to learn from everyone, and even open to looking at models that other countries use, because we have to think outside of the box to make it more effective, and our county an outstanding county and extraordinary county.
If you had to give the county a grade on how it's doing so far, what grade would you give it?
I would say it's good, B, but
A B?
I think we could go up to A plus.
Yeah. Mr. Killings, I'm just going to go through each one of you really quickly. If you could give me a scorecard.
I would say a C because we're seeing that expenditures are increasing faster than revenues coming in, and we need to address that.
Ms. Gales Preston?
Yes, I would say a B because we do see some great things, but there's room for improvement.
Mr. Barbanica?
I would say we're probably looking in the area of a C, but as soon as I get into office and conduct the audit, I'll be able to give you a better indication at that point.
Okay, let's drill down a little bit more. Let's maybe start with law enforcement. That has been a priority for people on this panel in terms of investment and changing. What's your position, Ms. Gales Preston, on crime, law enforcement, investment? I kind of give you a broad brush to say where the priority, for you as a supervisor, would be.
Yes, so my time on council, I have invested time and building relationships with our law enforcement in the city of Pittsburgh. I think it's important that we build the bridge with the community. And ways to do that is, working with community-based organizations, working with nonprofits, working with former gang members, working with our DA and probation department. That's how you community build within your city. Myself, I feel like it's important to invest in our youth. So during my time, I have worked on, creating programs such as we went out for a hike at Black Diamond Mines, where it was the officers and the youth to do a hiking trip. I worked with BART, where the youth were able to take the BART train to the Asian Art Museum with the officers. That was time that they were able to build and ask questions. And for our youth, that was their first time going to the Asian Art Museum. Some of them, their first time riding BART. So it's really important to build those relationships so that we can start feeling comfortable with our law enforcement within our community. And we're working together as a partnership.
What about retail theft and businesses saying, leaving areas and communities all around the Bay Area?
Yep, and that's happening everywhere, and that's really tough. We have, recently, a couple of months ago, Target decided to leave because of the retail theft, and that's something that, our council right away decided to put in a station right in that shopping center there, so that we can curb that retail theft. We have more patrol officers out there as well, and so we're hoping that we'll be able to continue to keep the remaining stores there, but it's something that we are very focused on. That would be something I would focus on here in District 5 as well.
Okay, Mr. Barbanica?
So I've been around law enforcement my entire life. My mother worked for a police department in 1985. I started with the Pittsburgh Police Department as a volunteer and then was hired 2 years after that. This is nothing new to me. While in the police department, I ran many of the divisions, participated in many of the divisions, but I was tasked in the 90s with actually creating a team to work the streets in the city of Pittsburgh that focused on street-level drug dealing, prostitution, shootings, anything of a violent nature. My team was credited after a few years of doing this with lowering the crime rate 23.87%. And that came directly from the administration and the city. So this is nothing that's new to me. What I see now is Prop 47 has had unintended consequences that many of the voters that I believe voted in Prop 47 didn't plan for them to occur. If you walk into a store and you see people walking out, they're untouched, they're not prosecuted, they are the theft level that has gone up to over $900 to become a felony is ridiculous. That is something that you and I are paying for through increased pricing when people walk out the door with shopping carts full of items. And we need a district attorney's office to partner with the police departments in prosecuting these thefts. Can we change Prop 47 at a local level? No, but we can sure put pressure on the assembly to bring a bill into place that actually makes theft a crime again in Contra Costa County.
Do you have a thought on the relationship between police and community that you'd like to weigh in on?
I do. I think that over time, especially in the last few years, there's a strained relationship between law enforcement and the community, depending on the police department that you're talking about. And it is incumbent on police administrators and police officers to foster a better relationship with the community through community engagement, community education, doing things like citizen police academies, allowing people to come in, to use the use of force simulators, going on ride-alongs, understanding where our officers can better understand the community and vice versa. That has to happen. We need officers on the street walking beats like they used to. When I was a police officer, we would park our car and get out and walk the downtown, walk the commercial areas, get to know the residents, get to know the business owners. And that is a piece in many police departments I feel is missing. Whose fault is it? Well, you have staffing issues, you have budget issues, but as your elected representatives, we need to ensure that our police officers and our police departments have the tools in place to get out and make these connections.
All right. Mr. Gonzalez.
I believe that I'm a business owner. I used to have my office in Pleasant Hill. Never had any issues in Pleasant Hill. Moved my office to Pittsburgh. I had a lot of homeless sleeping in my breezeway behind my office, I think we should all care for homeless people, but as a business owner, as people in the city, we want a safe spot for homeless people to be at, and we do not want defecation, a lot of graffiti. I've had my door broken into. I've had people banging on door just passing by, graffiti, a lot of trash thrown, so there's a constant thing. And we, as people in Pittsburgh, we want a safe community. So I promote law and order. And I think sometimes in the past where there was a 3 strikes, you're out, someone steals a pizza 3 separate times, I don't think they should be locked up forever. At the same time, the pendulum swinging to the other side where people could go in and steal $500 of items, $800 of items, that's not right either. Whether it be, we have to have accountability.
So as a county supervisor, what would you prioritize in that space?
As a county supervisor, we have to give the resources and put pressure on the district attorney, try to work together with the sheriff and the different police departments to work together, because sometimes a lot of the retail organized theft rings work together and hit different cities. So we have to be on top of that prevention, training, working with business owners. We do not want more business closing down like Target closed down. We want an abundance of retail shops where we don't have to drive 20, 30, 50 minutes to places that we want to shop at. We deserve to have excellent retail shops. So we have to work as a community to build up, whether we work with more volunteers, security firms, coming together to prevent this, and also putting pressure on the state to overturn Prop 47 to be more accountable for criminals and have accountability.
Okay. Mr. Killings.
Yes, so I think that a number of things that I agree with that have been shared here. I think we all understand that public safety is always the bedrock in terms of what's on the forefront of people's minds, how they feel in their community, whether that's going out shopping, whether that's feeling safe walking the streets. And so we want to make sure that we have adequate coverage. And so as a county supervisor, we oversee the sheriff's department. So we're really talking about the unincorporated areas of the community. And I really want to lift that up right now because many of our unincorporated communities have felt forgotten. They feel like nobody's representing them. So for us who represent on city councils, for our cities, residents come directly to us. But for our unincorporated areas, the county board of supervisors over those specific areas should be responsive to the folks in the unincorporated areas. So when we talk about law enforcement, making sure that we have adequate coverage for our unincorporated areas to respond when someone calls 911, that someone will be there in an appropriate time. I think a lot of us have touched on Prop 47 and the effects of it, so I won't go too far in it, but I really want to let folks know that we have elected officials, we have a lot of groups that supported Prop 47 and push it forward in terms of that initiative that really convinced voters that this would be safer communities and safer schools. And we need leaders with better foresight to be able to say, hey, what are going to be the consequences of this policy? So I really want to share with folks, policy matters and policy incentivizes behavior. So when you put policies out that decriminalize a lot of things that ultimately lead to destructive behavior, you're essentially encouraging that behavior. And it's no wonder why we see the things that we're seeing now.
So at a county level, what would you put forward in order? Any specifics on saying this program or something like this would change and address some of the issues that you see?
A lot of it is accountability, right? So across this spectrum, right? So a lot of the frustration with a lot of law enforcement agencies throughout the county is it's already been shared. So they go out, they do their job for laws that are on the books, and they go out and they make an arrest, someone is detained, and then 24 hours later, that individual is right back on the streets. I believe the public sees the frustration when they look on the news, someone was arrested, and then their rap sheet says they were arrested 7 times in the past 2 years. There's a breakdown and the pendulum has swung too far left. And so we need to make sure that as a county supervisor, one, we have a directly elected DA, right? That's somebody that the voters have voted in. But as county board of supervisors, we oversee that budget. So we need those performance measurements. We need to see what's really working. If we're saying we're putting in diversion programs or alternative sentencing, then we need to know, is it actually making an impact in the community and curbing behavior, or are we seeing an increase in that behavior? And I think that's something the board of supervisors can do in the space of not only law enforcement with the sheriff's department, but also working with the DA, the justice system, to make sure that we have accountability.
All right, we've talked briefly, we've touched on the homeless in some statements, but homeless and housing go hand in hand in terms of how you deal with that within specifically Contra Costa County. Mr. Barbanica, let's start with you in terms of specific programs or specific things that you would address: affordable housing, also homelessness?
Sure. So homelessness and unhoused residents are something that I've been working on for several years. This is not something that's new to me. I started this in 2007. My wife and I took our first family that came, I had just retired from the police department, a family that most of them came from Mexico, and they had lost their home. What we ended up doing was we ended up pulling my retirement money out and investing that money into a home for this family to live in for 2.5 years until they could get back on their feet. Well, while we were doing this, we started being contacted by more and more people that were facing being unhoused or being homeless. And we started putting together a program, and we've done this where we've partnered with private property owners and public entities where people like the Veterans Administration, HUD, County Housing, Brilliant Corners, Hamilton Families, Catholic Charities, there's 7 or 8 of them that we partner with to get people off the street. And I'm proud to say, as of last night, I have 569 people housed that did not sleep in the rain last night, specifically in my program. There is no reason that we can't do this on a larger scale where we take public and private and facilitate them working together to get people off of the street. There are plenty of programs out there. There's plenty of money out there available for this. It's just making those connections and making it happen. I started this in 2007. It's something that I do in my private business every day, and I would like to continue to bring this to a county level. Recently, County Housing contacted me about my program and asked if I could work with them and the Veterans Administration, and I said absolutely. So we started housing vets and getting them off the street. It's sad that we see people that have served our country living under bridges, living in cars. So we have one right now that's just going to be moving into a home. But what we found was the contract between housing coupled with the Veterans Administration and the landlords wasn't working. So I worked with County Housing to rewrite the contract where it was a win-win for the unhoused resident, a win for the folks supplying the money, and a win for the landlord. This can be done. We are investing hundreds of millions of dollars into these programs, and it seems like we're spinning our wheels. We need some different ideas, and we need a change within the direction that we've been headed.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez.
I believe housing is really unaffordable for many first-time families that are getting started in Contra Costa County, and it is not enough houses are being built, and the houses that are being built are higher-end homes for more expensive homes. So we have to have incentives for builders to build more first-time homebuyer homes, smaller townhouses, smaller square footage homes that are more affordable. And if we as a county have to step up, to on the homeless house people that are in our county, a lot of it is because of drug use and issues that the homeless unhoused person might have that needs therapy, needs ability to be able to help themselves, to be able to stand on their own feet. They need programs to get off of that addiction that they're on. So we, with our healthcare facilitators, facilities, we have to be more involved. Some of the unhoused people might not be ready or to get off the addiction, but by finding solutions in incremental steps, we can do that. Other communities in the country have started a program. I don't recall if it was net zero on the path to become zero of unhoused people in the community, and that's where I strive, because like I've had a lot of encounters with homeless people at my business. When you talk to them, they're really nice. I've never had any violent unhoused person. They just need some help to get off the addiction if they so choose, right? We need to be able to find ways, successful ways with working with community groups, therapists, churches, different organizations to help the people get a job, be able to empower themselves to be able to move forward.
Mr. Killings, your thoughts on homeless, but also housing and affordable housing?
Yeah, I think that part of the issue we're dealing with homelessness can be addressed in terms of dealing with housing. I think the largest issue is coming to coordination. I think that the state auditor had already put out a report that talked about the lack of coordination with the amount of money. We're talking about billions of dollars that have been spent at the state level, and then it's already been shared over 170 million over the past 4 years here locally, and we're seeing an increase in homelessness. So we have to look at what's happening with the coordination. Where is the breakdown in terms of the wraparound services? I think it's already been touched on as well, is that for a lot of the conversation around homelessness over the past, I would say 5 to 10 years, it was almost taboo to say anything about substance abuse or mental health. How dare you say people out on the streets are dealing with mental health or substance abuse, but the data bore it out, right? So it's not just simply a housing issue, because a lot of services, a lot of beds have been increased, and we've even heard from county staff that probably about 50% of folks they find unsheltered sometimes refuse the service, so that we have to start addressing mental health, substance use. I know Care Course is a new thing that is being rolled out and trying to make sure that we have bed capacity for those who need mental health assistance. But as we even tie it with housing, right? The issue that we have with housing in California is we don't know how to get out of our way. So we say, hey, everybody, we have a housing crisis, but then we make it harder for developers to develop housing. So whether that's through zoning, whether that's through labor, whether that's through advocacy rights, whether it's rent control and other policies, we make it more difficult and drive up the cost of housing, and then we wonder why not enough is being built. So there's a lot that goes into this space. Some of it is self-inflicted, and a lot of times money is not simply the answer. It's better coordination, and it's better foresight when it comes to the policies that we're putting in place.
Ms. Scales-Preston.
Yes. So in the city of Pittsburgh last year, we cut our homeless number rate in half. And that's because of the housing that we were able to create within the city. And so what that looks like is last year we opened up our Veterans Square, which was over 35 units for veterans and people that were over 55 years of age. We took a blighted area and worked with Yellow Roof Foundation and put 6 manufacturing homes there, where there was teachers and there's women who were in the battered shelter, and now they're placed in their house. We used the old Ford parking lot and just created affordable housing units there, and that's over 200 units that's about to open. It was shared about the Motel 6 and Project Home Key. Well, that's over 200 units that is being used. And we are taking people, not just in Pittsburgh, but all over the county that are coming to be housed there. So it shows, housing is a need. We have a housing authority within the city of Pittsburgh. We have over 1,000 units that we own through the housing authority that can use HUD vouchers, that also use HUD-VASH vouchers, which is for veterans. And we are constantly looking at ways that we can purchase more property within the city of Pittsburgh, whether that's creating, putting more manufactured homes, or purchasing property that we can rent out as low-income housing. But we need housing for everyone. We have teachers who are unable to purchase a house. I always say I hate when I hear someone say, I have to purchase outside the city, but I'm still working here. But I was born and raised here. So we definitely have to invest in creating housing for all levels of income. And when we say affordable, that could be someone that's making $65,000, $70,000 a year, but they're unable to purchase a home, and they have roommates.
Do you want to expand that out to the county, what you're doing in Pittsburgh?
I would like to expand that out to the county. You have to look at opportunities, and how do we work with, nonprofit housing organizations to create more housing. I would also like to touch on homelessness, because it's a health crisis as well. We look at mental health and substance abuse, but that's not the only issue there. I think, you have a lot of families that are $500, $600 away from being homeless, and they have to make a decision. If my car breaks down, am I going to pay the car note or get the car paid? So that is working so I can go to work, or I'm going to be late on my rent. We have a shower program in the city of Pittsburgh that we started. And I've been out there with families where they're sleeping in their cars with their kids. And, those are some of the decisions they had to make. And so I share that because I just don't want people to think when we talk about homeless, it's only substance abuse and mental health. We need wraparound services for everyone and to meet them where they at so that they are getting off substance abuse if they have those types of issues and getting help with mental health, but also people who are needing help financially if they are $500-600 away. How are we creating those spaces where they can stay housed instead of sleeping in their car with their children?
Yeah, I think that you guys have all kind of touched on care and funding for care in the county in terms of, I know Measure X will have some unspent balances, as I understand, of some millions of dollars, and a lot of what's been talked about is mental health, guaranteed income services for elderly and disabled. Mr. Gonzalez, if we start with you in terms of where you think money needs to be siphoned, how do you feel about care in the county, and how would you fix the deficits that you guys have all identified?
I think we have to reach out to a lot of businesses, community members, to help also bring funds in, because it's a community. We can't just leave it all on the government. We have to bring volunteers and money to be able to address this, have housing available whenever someone needs it. Whether, a lot of things can happen. We want to be able to have housing available for the people that need it, that lose their job, that can't afford it, that had a separation, a traumatic separation, violence.
Is that the county's role, as you see, is to provide that service?
I believe it is to help provide that service, but also work with our healthcare professionals, our psychiatrists, the community members, churches, different nonprofit organizations. We can't just leave it on the county government to handle everything. I think we have a role to play, to be involved and to be advocates, and to also provide some funding for programs to help. But we cannot just depend on government to solve the community's problem. We have to engage the community, engage businesses, engage volunteers, nonprofits, churches, and the state.
But it's fair to say you think that more could be done.
Exactly.
Mr. Killings, that more can be done, more money can be spent? How do you feel the state of wellness and care as we talk about the vulnerable populations within your county?
Yeah, more can be done, but it must be done smarter. And I think that we can't even lose what was just shared, that government is never going to solve every problem that we see happening in society. And I know that's going to be an unpopular opinion to some, but we have very limited resources, scarce resources. These are tax dollars that are paid by residents and folks that work hard for that money. And so when we're utilizing these funds, there has to be accountability for the results that we're getting, and to be truthful about, once again, the impact that it's having on the lives of the residents. So we talk about Measure X specifically, or we talk about just funding in general, what we can do more. I think it's been shared, myself and as well as other candidates on the panel here today, that we have to have audits. We need to understand performance reviews of these programs and services. The reality is that the expenditures the county are making are growing at a faster clip than the revenues that are coming in. What does that mean? It means that in a few years, some of these are going to be unsustainable. So what good does it do to tell residents that we're going to do all these shiny things, and then in 5 years, we don't have the money to continue it? Or better yet, I'm going to ask you for more money to fund it, on top of the fact that you're already cost burdened with trying to improve your own quality of life, whether that's through work, we're talking about issues of homelessness, and the rest. I think a large part of it as well with the performance audit is that we have a number of grant programs in the county that are not appropriately staffed, and I think we have to start talking about administratively what's going on in the county. And so we have employees that are doing duties that are outside of their scope of work. They're being stretched to do a whole lot of different tasks, and that ultimately means that there's going to be areas where the ball is dropped stopped because we don't have enough capacity within the departments to do what's required already. So I can talk about the Los Badones Community Healthcare District that was dissolved, and now that community-based grant program does not have the support from the Board of Supervisors to properly staff it so that we can do the proper community health assessment to make sure that grant dollars are actually going out to organizations that are doing work to improve outcomes. We can talk about Keller Canyon Mitigation Fund, where money is coming in for the landfill that is adjacent to communities in Pittsburgh that is being used to fund organizations that are doing no work tied to improving the conditions of that immediate area. And so there's a list of things that we can look at where the county needs to look internally and say, are we doing things right? Are we held accountable for the tax dollars that we're spending? Do we have processes in place that need to be improved? Do we have the capacity within our own departments? I'm gonna share this last thing before I stop, is that when we look at right now in terms of curbing expenditures, right now we have county board of supervisors who are expanding and creating new departments. We're talking about new initiatives and programs. You brought up even about, guaranteed income. Where does that money come from? And then what does that say to the departments that are already struggling, that are asking for more money to support the work that they're doing that is critical and can't even get the funding to do their work, but they see the supervisors creating new departments and creating new initiatives? I think it's sending the wrong signal, and we need supervisors that will understand that this is an organization, a $5.5 billion organization, and it's not about the flashy policies. It's not about getting out there and making your name known. It's not about appeasing special interest groups. It's about organizing and managing effectively the limited resources that we have as a government agency.
Okay. Ms. Gales Preston, your thoughts on, as we take a look at the care and the equity, you've mentioned equity about across the county, where the county plays a role in that, and how and if you fund more or push more resources to that space.
So, first off, I just want to give my hats off to community-based organizations and nonprofits throughout District 5. The county can't do it all, cities can't do it all, but these organizations, they do a lot, and they carry a heavy load. And, without them, we would really see even more hurt throughout our community. So it's important that, we are also helping them build capacity in how we work together to fill in these gaps that needs to have more services. As it was shared, some of our communities throughout District 5 feel as though they don't have a voice, feel as though they're being left behind, and, they lack these services and it's needed. We definitely have to, look at a review of what's going on throughout different departments. And as I shared earlier, making sure things are equitable across the board. And where things aren't needed in some of these areas, maybe funding is relocated to the areas that it may be needed. And so I think that part is, really important to have an eye towards equity throughout every single department, every single service that's going out to create that change.
Okay. Mr. Barbanica?
So along those lines, follow the money. If you follow the money and you follow with an audit to see where this money is being spent, not every department is the same, and not every department in the county has the same needs. You can actually use a lot of this with federal funds. And let me give you an example. Just taking unhoused residents or homelessness. When we take HUD money to house somebody, that is not chipping away at Measure X money. If we're talking $120 million in Measure X money, that is your money that is paid through sales tax, this is going to last approximately 20 years. It's been in for a couple of years, so the clock is ticking on this. But if we continue to funnel money to new programs, what happens when Measure X is over and it expires? What do we do at that point? However, what we can do is we can partner with our federal partners, our federal government, and say, you fund this, for example, housing, and we will work with Measure X money to make it work for the landlords, et cetera. Now, there's legal implications, and of course, we have to involve attorneys and HUD and so on and so forth. But there are ways to utilize this money where it is not putting money into a long-term program that is not sustainable. When $120 million is dumped in your lap, it's very easy to say, let's go create a new department, let's go create a new initiative. But we need to think ahead when this money runs out, and it will run out, what do we do with it? So what we need to do is hedge our bet on this and say, for example, homelessness or housing. If we can get VA vouchers, HUD vouchers for through county housing, work with the nonprofits that are in the area that are helping to fund this, and we supplement that to get people in the door, that is not continual money coming out of your pocket. The problem is people are looking at these programs and not realizing that eventually your money will come to an end. What do we do if we have another economic downturn and that $120 million diminishes drastically? What do we do at that point? Do we shut down departments, or do we go back to you for another tax? That's not sustainable. We need to follow the money, audit where this money is coming from and where it's going out to and how it's being used and what the future holds with it.
All right, we have time to tackle one more big issue in a very quick amount of time, and we haven't really talked about infrastructure, which is obviously a huge topic. I want to give you guys each kind of a minute before we get to our closing statements to kind of tackle your priorities of infrastructure in the county as a supervisor. Mr. Cummings, we'll start with you.
Yeah, infrastructure is one of the core aspects of local government. We're talking about roads, we're talking about sewer and water, and so we're looking at infrastructure. I know we have a shining jewel in CCTA, the Transportation Authority, that has done a lot in terms of trying to improve the circulation of traffic throughout the county. So definitely want to build on what they've been able to do in terms of being able to attract outside money and being a shining model for the rest of the nation around transportation. But I also think when we talk about infrastructure, I think in District 5 specifically, we have a lot of old blighted industry in District 5, right? So you think about the northern waterfront, you think about the infrastructure there. We need a lot of cleanup, we need a lot of remediation. And so cities like Pittsburgh, we've created EIFDs in terms of we're going out and trying to set aside the dollars to enhance that infrastructure, to be able to create not only job centers, but more recreation, and really putting skin in the game to bring the Northern Waterfront Initiative to life. We need the county to partner with cities along the Northern Waterfront to build the infrastructure to be able to have that prosperous future in District 5.
All right, Ms. Scales-Preston, infrastructure.
Yes, infrastructure is huge. I would say it is the part of the fabric of our community in District 5. And so with industry changing, we are, prime at having water and rail, but it's something that we have to create and bring in jobs along that northern waterfront. I also just want to share that just looking at transportation, I sit on the Eastern Contra Costa Transportation Authority, which is Transplant and Tri-Delta Transit. And just, when I think of West Contra Costa County, just looking at ways that they and I have a BART station and it stops in Richmond, how do we get that to come all the way down to the ends of District 5? Because that is so needed. And so when we're looking at trying to create different modes of transportation, we're looking at ferry service as well. And so that's huge on my radar of creating infrastructure, but also focusing on transportation.
Okay, Mr. Barbanica, infrastructure.
So any politician that tells you that they're going to lighten the load on the freeways, be very skeptical of what they're telling you. What really needs to happen is our local politicians need to work with our state and federal leaders to make sure that we have transportation monies coming into our local governments here. For mass transportation, to look to the future for those types of things that are going to get people off of the roads and bringing jobs to the local communities so we take commuters off of the road. But to think that we're going to take cars off the road tomorrow, if a local politician tells you that, that's not reality. We need to partner with state and federal leaders to make that happen. When we're talking about the northern waterfront, I'm very supportive of developing the northern waterfront, but I want to work with groups like Save Mount Diablo and those types of groups so we do this smart and not just build to build.
Okay, Mr. Gonzalez, infrastructure.
I believe there's a lot of infrastructure opportunities. One of the freeways cannot get bigger and bigger because they're building more houses. It's just going to get more congested within a few years. So I believe in smart location of businesses. We have to work with the businesses in the Bay Area, encourage them to come to parts of the Contra Costa County that are more, where most of the workers commute 1 hour, 2 hours. We have to move jobs around. We have to be able to encourage businesses with incentives, whether it be some property tax incentives, where it's going to be a win-win for everyone. It's going to save us a lot of money in infrastructure business. Also, we have to, I remember 10, 20 years ago hearing about the ferries. We haven't done it. Why haven't we done it? We have to get, be able to go to Pittsburgh Marina, go to Antioch if you want through the Marina, or to Vallejo, or to San Francisco. That's a efficient way of transportation. We just have to have the infrastructure, just like when people were complaining about the expansion of BART. We decided to do it, and it happened, and it worked. A lot of people are using it.
All right. Thank you. Certainly, thank you all for this very important discussion. I want to thank all the candidates for being here. So many important questions from our constituents. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Mike Barbanica, we'll start with you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me today, and thank you for listening to my message, specifically regarding County Supervisor District 5. I have spent my entire life as a public servant and passed that on to my children, who are now spending their time as public servants as well. This is something that is very near and dear to me and very important in my life. Also very important in my life is making sure that as a public servant, we make those tough decisions and do the right thing. Sounding politically correct and telling you what you want to hear does not get things done. There are people out there in politics who are very nice people, but don't necessarily get things done. My priority is dealing with homeless, public safety, and public safety, again, very near and dear to me. 21 years I spent working the street. I worked undercover. I ended up working a street crimes unit where we were out buying drugs and those types of things to stop drug houses and get them out of the areas. I've worked with Save Mount Diablo and other organizations to make sure we preserve our open spaces. I'll give you an example. One of the things that I'm very proud that I did is we had an 1,100 unit housing development coming into town. I spent 5 hours with Save Mount Diablo walking that property, and then met with the developer and worked with both sides to make sure both sides were happy with what is occurring. We need to preserve those open spaces. I doubled the size of code enforcement in the city of Antioch and made sure, when I got into office, made sure that code enforcement was held accountable and is out there every day working. I'll do the same thing as your District 5 supervisor, and I thank you for your time, and thank you for potentially considering me for your vote.
All right. Chanel Scales Preston, your 2-minute closing statement.
Thank you. I want to thank Contra Costa TV and the League of Women Voters. And I just want to let you know that what drives me every day is my community. I have focused the last 22 years in public service, and that has been working for Congressman George Miller and Congressman Mark DeSaulnier. But my day-to-day is dealing with constituent services and taking care of the needs of our community. As a council member, I have done the same thing. I have addressed crime. I have prioritized youth services. We have looked at our unhoused community, and we have created economic development throughout the city of Pittsburgh. I have served on regional committees and worked with federal, state, local electeds and community-based and nonprofits throughout our community to make a change, and I will do that throughout District 5. Because my job is not just to be an elected official, my job is to work hard to collaborate and build bridges to help get things done through the community or on the dais serving as the Board of Supervisors. Through my time of serving on League of California Cities, serving on Eastern Transportation Authority, I have focused on ways that we can create and alleviate transportation congestion throughout our district. And I will continue to do that on District 5 as well. I think what is most important to me is in our community, it's important that people feel valued, they feel heard throughout all of District 5, that someone is present and not just someone sitting on the dais, but someone's out in the community understanding what's going on each and every day. And I have shown that in my community, and that's what I would show throughout District 5. I want to thank you, and I appreciate your time, and I hope to earn your vote.
All right. Jelani Killings, your 2-minute closing statement.
Yes, thank you. So once again, thank you to the Elections Division, the League of Women Voters for putting this on. Simply put, we need government accountability, and we need it now. For too long, we've seen the cost of living continue to skyrocket, get out of control, and the answer has always been the government asking us to give more by way of tax dollars, but yet we're receiving less. And so when we're talking about public safety, whether we're talking about public services and programs, we need better outcomes. And so for me, that's my lens I'm looking through. I believe that I'm an independent voice for the Board of Supervisors and for the residents of Contra Costa County District 5. My priorities are simple. We need good governance. We need fiscal responsibility. As I've shared during this forum, that expenditures in the county are growing at a faster clip than revenues are coming in. So we need officials that have the ability to say no. Frankly, we have a lot of groups that come out, they ask for things, and because a lot of these special interest groups support candidates during campaigns, there's a difficult time to say no. And so we need independent voices on the Board of Supervisors to be able to make those decisions. I'm looking forward to partnering with the county auditor and controller for those performance audits because they need to be made available to the public. Transparency is key for me, and I've led with that even on my time on the city council in Pittsburgh, where I served on the Government Performance Subcommittee. We implemented performance measurements and a public dashboard so that the public can see how our priorities and goals are being accomplished, and also to have a collaboration with staff to be able to track and monitor our progress. I've also opened up the window to our subcommittees being recorded and publicly accessible online so that the public can see. And so this is the type of good governance that we need. We need to focus on public safety. There are things that we can do around workforce development, and I'm looking forward to representing the residents of District 5 on the Board of Supervisors, and I humbly ask for your vote by March 5th.
All right. Iztac Watley Gonzalez, your closing statement.
First of all, let me thank the League of Women Voters and everyone that took part in this conversation that we had today, and our host from KTVU. And since I was 5 years old, I moved from Los Angeles to Contra Costa County and have been here all my life, with the exception when I went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo to school and working in LA for LAUSD. I've been in Contra Costa County. I taught as a substitute teacher. I taught adult school. I've been involved in the community. I taught at Helms Middle School in San Pablo. I've seen poverty. I've seen a lot of situations in life, whether it be family, friends, the community. I love this community, and I'm here to serve at 800%. I was never involved in a political campaign before, or politics, with the exception of canvassing for Bernie Sanders, which, might not agree with 100% of his things, but I think he's an honest person. He's probably the one that's less bought by corporations and interest groups, and I'm that type of person that is not bought by any person. I have not taken any donations, but I'm going to start taking donations. So any of my community members that want to donate, we'll be here to serve you and work for you and knock doors. And I plan to meet the most possible constituents in our northern part of Contra Costa County to serve, and it's time to have some change, someone that's outside of the box, that's gonna be in the business world and working different occupations, that can make a change in the county level, in the supervisor level, to make sure everything's accountable, that we're spending money wisely for you. And I love everyone, and let's go forward.
All right. Thank you to all the candidates. This does conclude today's candidate roundtable for Contra Costa Supervisor District 5. Once again, your candidates are Mike Barbanica, we have Chanel Scales-Preston, Jolly Killings, and Iztac Watley Gonzalez. Thank you so much all for being here. For more information about the candidates, go to vote411.org to view this broadcast online, or to get more voting information, go to contracostavote.gov/elections. I'm Claudine Wong from KTVU, your moderator today. I'd like to thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote on March 5th.